They say the walk to the executioner's block is the longest walk of a prisoner's life. For Amara Williams, sitting in the back of a bulletproof Maybach outside the Grand Hyatt Seoul, the executioner wasn't a man with an axe. It was 1,000 camera flashes exploding against the tinted glass like lightning. "Don't look," Minjun said. His hand was gripping hers so tight her knuckles were white. He wasn't looking at the window either. He was staring straight ahead, his jaw set like granite. But Amara looked. She couldn't help it. Through the rain-streaked glass, she saw the crowd. They weren't fans. They weren't there to cheer for the CEO of K-Tech and his beautiful date. They were a mob. They were holding signs. And on those signs was a face Amara knew well. It was her face. But not the face she wore today. It was a black and white mugshot from 5 years ago. Her hair wild, a bruise on her cheek, a number held under her chin. Criminal, foreign thug. Deport the violent. Nanny. The chants penetrated the heavy steel of the car. The rhythm was terrifying. Thump, thump, thump. Amara looked down at her dress. Emerald green velvet. It was supposed to be her armor. It was supposed to be the dress of a queen. But right now, it felt like a shroud. "They hate me," she whispered. "Minjun, turn the car around. I can't go out there. I can't let them see me like this." Minjun turned to her. He reached out and touched the jade ring on her shaking finger. "They don't hate you," he said fiercely. "They hate the lie." He reached for the door handle. "Ready? Stop. Do not open that door yet. If you are looking at that mob and wondering, why does the entire city of Seoul hate Amara? Or, where did that mugshot come from? You missed the most vicious betrayal in the history of this channel. Here is the truth you need to know. Amara isn't a criminal. She was a student protester in London, defending her friend from a tuition hike. But the woman waiting, inside that hotel, Sohee, the evil fiancé, dug up Amara's past. She found a 5-year-old police record and leaked it to the press this morning. She framed Amara. She spun a story that the mystery mother is a violent radical. Sohee is standing on the red carpet right now, wearing a diamond ring, waiting for Amara to run away in shame. She thinks she has won. If you didn't see Sohee leak that photo in episode 4, you need to pause this video immediately. Click the link in the description. You need to see the trap being set before you see Amara walk right through it. For everyone else, take a deep breath. Because Amara isn't going to run. She is about to step out of that car and give us the fashion moment of the century. The door of the Maybach clicked. The sound was small, mechanical, but it signaled the end of safety. The heavy door swung outward and the world rushed in. It was a physical wall of noise, screams, shutters clicking like machine gun fire, rain hissing on the pavement. The humidity of the Seoul summer night hit Amara's face, heavy and suffocating. Minjun stepped out first. He buttoned his tuxedo jacket with a calm, deliberate movement. He stood tall, ignoring the rain that immediately dampened his hair. He looked at the crowd with a cold, imperious stare that silenced the people closest to him. He turned back to the car and extended his hand. Amara took a deep breath. She smoothed the velvet over her thighs. She wasn't wearing white tonight. White was for brides. White was for innocence. Tonight, she was wearing green. She took Minjun's hand and stepped out onto the red carpet. A gasp rippled through the crowd. It started at the front and rolled backward like a wave. For a second, the chanting stopped. Even the photographers lowered their cameras, stunned by the visual impact. The dress was a masterpiece. It was emerald green velvet, dark as a forest at midnight. It was off the shoulder, exposing the smooth, dark skin of her neck and clavicle. The bodice was structured, corseted tight, emphasizing her waist before flowing into a skirt that pooled on the wet carpet like liquid money. It had a slit up the left leg that was daring, almost scandalous, revealing a flash of thigh with every step. It was the color of the jade ring. It was a statement. I am not hiding. I am not apologizing. I am matching the crown jewel. Amara stood up straight. She felt the rain on her skin, cool and refreshing. She felt the weight of the dress, heavy and regal. The silence broke. The screaming restarted, louder than before. Look at the dress! Is that the jade ring? She has no shame. A reporter near the rope lunged forward, thrusting a microphone over the security barrier. Ms. Williams, is it true you were arrested for assaulting a police officer? Are you a member of a radical group? Did you seduce the CEO to get a visa? Amara didn't flinch. She tightened her grip on Minjun's hand. She lifted her chin, exposing her neck, looking down her nose at the reporter. She didn't answer. She simply smiled. It was a small, mysterious smile, the smile of someone who knows a secret. Walk, Minjun whispered. They began to move down the red carpet. It was a gauntlet. On either side, the crowd pressed against the velvet ropes, their faces twisted with curiosity and judgment. Amara focused on putting one foot in front of the other. Left, right, left. The slit in her dress flashed. The jade ring on her finger caught the light of 1,000 flashbulbs, glowing with an inner green fire. She saw the massive screen set up outside the hotel, broadcasting the arrival live. She saw herself on the screen, a tall, striking figure in green velvet, holding the hand of the most powerful man in the tech industry. She didn't look like a criminal. She didn't look like a nanny. She looked like a dynasty. Minjun stopped halfway down the carpet. This wasn't in the plan. Amara looked at him, confused. Minjun? He turned to the wall of photographers. The photo wall. Usually, couples stood side by side, smiling politely. Minjun let go of her hand. For a terrifying second, Amara thought he was leaving her. The crowd sensed it too. A hush fell. Is he dumping her? Is he distancing himself? But Minjun didn't leave. He stepped back. He stepped out of the frame entirely. He gestured to her. You. Alone. He was giving her the stage. He was telling the world that she didn't need him to hold her up. Amara stood alone in front of the blinding lights. The rain misted around her. She felt exposed, vulnerable. But then she remembered the mugshot. The girl in that photo had been angry. The woman on this carpet was powerful. Amara placed one hand on her hip. She turned her body slightly, showing the line of the dress. She raised her left hand to brush a raindrop from her face, a deliberate movement that showcased the jade ring to every camera lens in Korea. Click, 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 click. The sound was deafening. The flashes were blinding. She owned the moment. In that second, the narrative shifted. They weren't taking pictures of a criminal anymore. They were taking pictures of a fashion icon. The headline changed from Violent Nanny to the Emerald Queen. Minjun stepped back in. He wrapped an arm around her waist, claiming her, pulling her close. He whispered in her ear, "You just broke the internet." The heavy glass doors of the Grand Hyatt swung open, sealing out the noise of the rain and the mob. The lobby was a different world. It was cool, scented with lilies, and quiet. But it was a dangerous quiet. This was the gala, the inner sanctum. The lobby was filled with the 1% of Seoul, the chaebol families, the politicians, the tech giants. The women were in diamonds and silk. The men were in tuxedos. When Amara and Minjun walked in, the conversation stopped. It wasn't a gradual lull. It was an instant, suffocating silence. 300 heads turned, 600 eyes focused on the woman in the green dress. Amara felt the judgment physically. It pressed against her skin. These people had seen the mugshot. They had read the articles. To them, she wasn't just a scandal. She was a contagion. She was the dirty secret that had been dragged into their pristine parlor. She saw the whispers start. Behind fans. Behind champagne flutes. That's her. The one from the mugshot. Look at the ring. It's hideous on her. Does she think she's royalty? Minjun stiffened beside her. He was ready to fight. He was ready to shout. But Amara squeezed his hand. No, she signaled. Not yet. They walked toward the grand ballroom. To get there, they had to descend a sweeping marble staircase, and standing at the top of the stairs, blocking their path, was the welcoming committee. It was Park So-hee. She looked magnificent. She was wearing a gown of silver sequins that fit her like armor. It was high-necked, long-sleeved, and covered in thousands of tiny crystals. She looked like a diamond come to life. Sharp, cold, valuable. On her finger, her engagement ring sparkled under the chandelier light. She was flanked by two older women, her mother, the matriarch of Hanul Group, and Madame Kang, Minjun's mother. Madame Kang wore black. A severe, high-collared hanbok that made her look like a judge. Her face was a mask of disappointment. So-hee smiled as they approached. It was the smile of a predator who sees a limping gazelle. Minjun, So-hee said, her voice carrying in the silent lobby. You're late. She looked at Amara. She looked at the wet hem of the green dress. She looked at the defiant tilt of Amara's chin. And you brought a guest, So-hee continued. How brave. I assumed after the news broke this morning you would be halfway to the airport, Amara. I don't run, Amara said. Her voice was calm, projecting to the crowd watching from the lobby below. No? So-hee laughed. The police report said you were quite good at running. Failure to disperse, wasn't it? A titter of laughter ran through the crowd. The elite loved a good takedown. Madame Kang stepped forward. She didn't look at Amara. She looked only at her son. Minjun, she said coldly. This is a charity event for families. Respectable families. You are making a scene. Take this woman out the back door before you embarrass us further. She is not leaving, Minjun said. She is my date. She is a criminal, So-hee snapped, dropping the polite facade. She pointed a finger at Amara. Look at her. She is a violent radical who assaults police officers. Do you want that standing next to you when you announce the merger? Do you think the shareholders will accept that as the mother of the heir? The crowd gasped. So-hee had said the quiet part out loud. Amara let go of Minjun's hand. She took a step towards So-hee. She walked up the first step of the stairs, so she was eye-level with the silver-clad heiress. You seem to know a lot about my past, So-hee, Amara said. I know enough, So-hee sneered. I know you don't belong here. You know about the arrest, Amara said. But did you read the rest of the file? Did you read why I was protesting? So-hee rolled her eyes. Who cares? Probably some socialist nonsense. I was protesting, Amara said, her voice ringing out clear and strong. Because the university was cutting scholarships for low-income students. I was protesting because my best friend, a girl who worked 3 jobs, was being kicked out of school because she couldn't pay the tuition hike. The room went quiet again. I stood in front of a police horse, Amara continued. Not because I am violent, but because I was protecting her. I took the hit so she wouldn't have to. She took another step up. You call that criminal, So-hee. You call it radical. But where I come from, we call it loyalty. She raised her left hand. The jade ring flashed. And that is something you can't buy with a diamond. Minjun looked at Amara. He looked at the crowd. He saw the shift. The whispers weren't mocking anymore. They were intrigued. He realized then that this wasn't just a red carpet walk. This was a trial. And Amara was winning. He walked up the stairs and stood next to her. He took her hand again. "We are going inside," Minjun announced to his mother and Sohee. "And we are going to dance. Move." Madame Kang looked at her son. She saw the iron in his eyes. She saw the way he looked at Amara, with a reverence she had never seen him give to anyone, not even his father. She stepped aside. Sohee stood her ground for a second longer, her face twisting in fury. But she couldn't block the CEO at his own event. She stepped back, her silver dress rustling like angry snakes. "Go ahead," Sohee whispered as Amara passed her. "Dance. But remember, the night isn't over, and I have the microphone for the keynote speech." Amara didn't look back. She walked into the ballroom, the emerald train of her dress gliding over the marble, leaving the wreckage of her rival behind her. The grand ballroom of the Hyatt was a cavern of gold leaf and crystal. It was large enough to hold 1,000 people, and tonight, it was full. The air was chilled to a precise 68 degrees, scented with thousands of white roses imported from Ecuador. When Amara and Minjun stepped through the archway, the room didn't just go quiet. It seemed to hold its breath. The orchestra was playing a soft jazz standard, but the music felt distant, muffled by the weight of 600 eyes staring at the couple. The elite of Seoul, the chaebols, the politicians, the stars, parted like the Red Sea. They created a wide, empty path for Minjun and Amara, not out of respect, but out of a desire to not be contaminated by the scandal. Amara felt the isolation. It was a physical coldness. She held her head high, the emerald velvet of her dress swishing softly against the marble, but inside, she was vibrating with adrenaline. "They are staring," she whispered, her lips barely moving. "Let them stare," Minjun replied, his voice calm and grounding. "They have never seen a queen before. They don't know how to react." He didn't lead her to a table. He didn't lead her to the bar to hide. He led her straight to the center of the dance floor. The floor was empty. Everyone else was standing on the periphery, watching, whispering, judging. Minjun stopped in the dead center, directly under the massive crystal chandelier. He turned to her. He placed one hand on her waist, the corset of the green dress rigid under his fingers, and took her right hand in his. "Minjun," Amara panicked slightly. "There is no music." "There will be," he said. He looked up at the conductor on the balcony. He gave a single, sharp nod. The conductor, terrified of the K-Tech CEO, tapped his baton instantly. The jazz band stopped. A moment of silence, and then the strings began. It wasn't a jazz tune. It was a waltz. Shostakovich. Heavy, dramatic, and sweeping. Minjun stepped into the music, pulling Amara with him. They began to move. At first, Amara was stiff. She felt the eyes of the room boring into her back. She saw the flashes of cameras from the press gallery on the mezzanine. She saw Sohee standing on the edge of the floor, holding a glass of champagne, her silver dress glittering like broken glass. But Minjun wouldn't let her falter. He was a strong lead, guiding her through the turns with a force that demanded surrender. "Look at me," he commanded again. "Only me. The rest of them don't exist." Amara looked up. She locked eyes with him. She saw the fierce protectiveness there, the absolute devotion. And suddenly, the room did disappear. The whispers faded into the background noise of the cello. She relaxed. She let the music take her. The emerald dress came alive. As Minjun spun her, the velvet skirt flared out, a green vortex spinning in a sea of black tuxedos and polite pastels. The slit in the skirt flashed, revealing her leg, daring and elegant. The jade ring on her hand, resting on Minjun's shoulder, caught the light with every turn. It was a defiant dance. It was a statement. We are here. We are together. And we are not afraid. For 3 minutes, they were the only two people in the world. Then, the music stopped. The final note hung in the air. Minjun dipped her, holding the pose for a heartbeat longer than necessary. There was a moment of silence. Then, polite, scattered applause broke out. It wasn't enthusiastic. It was the sound of people who were confused, people who had expected a disaster and witnessed a masterpiece. Minjun pulled her upright. He didn't let go of her waist. "You were perfect," he whispered. But before Amara could answer, the lights in the ballroom slammed off. Darkness swallowed the room. A single blinding spotlight cut through the black, illuminating the stage at the far end of the room. And standing there, bathed in white light, was Park So-hee. So-hee looked magnificent and terrifying. Her silver sequined gown reflected the spotlight so intensely she looked like a human disco ball. She stood at the podium, gripping the microphone with hands that glittered with diamonds. She smiled. It was the smile of the cat, who had not only caught the canary but had already plucked its feathers. "Good evening, distinguished guests," So-hee's voice boomed through the speakers. It was smooth, practiced, the voice of a trained heiress. "Welcome to the K-Tech Annual Charity Gala." Amara felt Minjun tense up beside her. "This is usually the time," So-hee continued, "where we talk about the future. We talk about innovation. We talk about family." She paused. Her eyes scanned the dark room until they found Minjun and Amara in the shadows. "My fiancé, Kang Minjun, loves to talk about family. He believes that K-Tech is built on trust, on transparency, on honor." She laughed softly into the mic. "But tonight, I think we need to be honest. With ourselves. Because how can we build a future if we are lying about the present?" Minjun took a step forward. "She's going off script," he hissed. "Stay here," he told Amara. "I'm going to cut the mic." "No." Amara grabbed his arm. "Don't. If you stop her, it looks like we are afraid. Let her speak." So he leaned into the podium. "We have a guest tonight," she said, her voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper. "A woman who has captured the heart of our CEO. A woman who claims to be a mother. A nurturer." She gestured to the giant LED screen behind her. "But in the spirit of transparency, I think you should know who is really standing in your ballroom." So he pressed a button on the clicker in her hand. The massive screen behind her flickered to life. It wasn't a charity video. It wasn't a graph of stock prices. It was the mugshot. It was 20 feet tall. Every pixel of Amara's distress, every strand of messy hair, every inch of her angry, defiant face was magnified for the entire room to judge. A gasp went through the crowd. It was louder than the applause had been. "This," so he announced, pointing at the giant face, "is Amara Williams, arrested 5 years ago in London. Charges: assaulting an officer, inciting a riot, creating public disorder." She looked directly at Amara. "Is this the woman we want raising the next generation of K-Tech? Is this the queen my fiancé wants you to bow to?" So he shook her head sadly. "I don't think so. K-Tech stands for order, for law, for dignity. And frankly, this is just trash." The room was deadly silent. The word trash hung in the air, echoing off the gold walls. Amara felt like she had been punched in the stomach. The dress, the ring, the dance, it all evaporated. She felt naked. She felt like that 22-year-old girl again, scared and cold in a holding cell. She wanted to run. Every instinct in her body screamed run. The exit was to her left. She could disappear into the rain. She could take Leo and fly back to London. She could be safe. She took a step back, but a hand grabbed hers. It wasn't Minjun. Minjun was already moving toward the stage. Minjun didn't run. He walked. He walked with the terrifying, predatory grace of a tiger. He walked through the crowd, and people scrambled to get out of his way. They saw his face. It wasn't the face of a CEO. It was the face of a man who was about to burn the building down. He walked up the stairs to the stage. So-hee saw him coming. Her smile faltered. She took a step back from the podium. Minjun, she said, her voice wavering slightly over the speakers. I'm just protecting the company. Someone had to. Minjun reached the podium. He didn't hit her. He didn't scream. He reached out and took the microphone from her hand. He didn't snatch it. He took it firmly, decisively, like taking a toy from a child. Then he turned to the AV booth at the back of the room. Cut the screen, he ordered. His voice boomed, deep and furious. The lie. Screen went black. The mugshot vanished. Minjun turned to look at the crowd. He looked at the hundreds of shocked faces. Then he looked at So-hee, who was standing frozen next to him. You talk about transparency, Minjun said into the mic. You talk about honor. He reached into the inside pocket of his tuxedo. He pulled out a folded document. It was blue, bound in leather. Amara gasped. She recognized it. It was the contract, the betrothal agreement, the trillion-won cage. Let's talk about honor, Minjun said. He held up the document. This is the agreement I signed with Hanyul Group 6 months ago. It states that I must marry Park So-hee to secure her father's patent portfolio. A murmur ran through the crowd. This was private corporate business. He was airing it live. It says, Minjun continued, that if I break the engagement, I owe 1 trillion won. He looked at So-hee. You think this piece of paper owns me? You think you can buy me? You think you can humiliate the mother of my son and I will stay silent to save a stock price? Minjun gripped the document with both hands. Ra. P. The sound was amplified by the microphone. It sounded like a gunshot. He tore the contract in half, then in quarters. He threw the pieces into the air. They fluttered down like confetti around So-hee's silver dress. I would rather go bankrupt, Minjun said, his voice shaking with emotion, than spend 1 more minute attached to a woman without a soul. He turned his back on So-hee. He looked out into the darkness of the ballroom. Amara, he said, come up here. Amara stood frozen. Her legs felt like lead. Come here, Minjun repeated, softer this time. Please. She took a breath. She touched the jade ring. Lions do not lose sleep over the opinions of sheep. She started to walk. The crowd parted again. This time, there was no judgment in their eyes. There was awe. They had just watched a man destroy a merger worth billions for a woman. They wanted to see the woman. Amara walked up the stairs. She stood next to Minjun. He took her hand. He lifted it up, showing the jade ring to the room. You saw a mugshot, Minjun said to the crowd. You saw a criminal. Let me tell you what I see. He looked at Amara. I see a woman who stood in front of a police horse to save her friend. I see a woman who worked 3 jobs to get a master's degree. I see a woman who raised my son alone in a foreign country, with no money and no help, and raised him to be kind and strong and beautiful. He turned to the audience. So he called her a radical. She is right. Loving someone this much, fighting for your family when the world tells you to run, that is radical. He looked at the camera crews. Tomorrow, the stock might drop. I don't care. K-Tech doesn't need a marriage of convenience. K-Tech needs truth. And this. He squeezed Amara's hand. This is my truth. He dropped the microphone. It hit the floor with a thud that echoed in the silence. He took Amara's face in his hands and kissed her. It wasn't a polite peck. It was a kiss of possession, of relief, of victory. For a second, there was silence. Then, someone started clapping. It was the grandfather. Chairman Kang was sitting in his wheelchair in the front row. He was clapping his slow, rhythmic clap. Then Madam Kang stood up. She looked at So-hee, who was standing alone and humiliated on the side of the stage. Then she looked at her son. She sighed, a ghost of a smile touching her lips, And she started clapping too. The room erupted. Wait, you think it's over? Min Jun just tore up a $1 trillion contract. He just humiliated the heiress of Hanul Group on live TV. The crowd is cheering. The couple is kissing. It looks like a happy ending. But look at So-hee's face. She isn't crying. She is smiling. She is picking up the pieces of the contract from the floor. Why? Because Min Jun forgot to read the fine print. Clause 14, Section C. In the event of a public breach, custody of any assets, including heirs, may be frozen pending litigation. So he isn't going to take the money. She is going to take the baby. Subscribe right now. Season 2 is about to begin. And the villain isn't So-hee anymore. It's the court system. Comment below. Team green dress or team contract? See you in the next episode.